Welcome to Cinemophile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Caspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemophilepod.com. Our guest today is award-winning filmmaker Ondi Timoner. She's been on the program many times to talk about her projects, and what distinguishes her in so many ways is the passion that she brings to her projects. And this one is no exception. All God's Children is not only about our society and the intersection of religion and politics, but also it's personal because it features her sister, Rachel Timoner, who is the rabbi, the Congregation Beth Elohim Synagogue in Brooklyn. And it's her story. It's also the story of Dr. Robert Waterman of Antioch Baptist Church and how the two of them put their faith to the test and try to bring their two congregations who struggle with so many aspects of this very complex relationship in their religions and try to get them to a better place where their differences will not drive them apart, but in fact can be a platform for coming together. The film again is called All God's Children. We're joined today by Director Ondi Timoner. Ondi, welcome back.
So I started making this film 5 years ago. I was so impressed with my sister's just drive for social justice and to right all the wrongs of the world. I would sometimes land in New York to, do a series of meetings or a premiere or screening or something. And I'd have plans with Rachel, but she'd be in jail because she had been, protesting for the Dreamers or holding an Amazon store open because they were providing services to ICE, cloud services, or she was leading the largest reform rabbi protest against Trump or overall rabbi protest against Trump. I mean, I think she was arrested like 8 times within a span of a year or two. So I thought, I make all these movies about these impossible visionaries, these people that take on the impossible, and they are so driven. Why am I not making a film about my sister, and at least even a short film? So I thought of the words rebel rabbi. And that's actually how it started. Was I approached Rachel and said, I really think that you're a hero in a lot of ways. The fact that you could just lead these 1,000 families in the largest Reform synagogue in Brooklyn and then go home at night and maybe catch some sleep, but then have to do all of these bar mitzvahs and weddings and this and that and the other, and then funerals and helping people through all of these times. And I mean, she just is working with Israel, Gaza. Like, she's so involved in everything. And for her to then be putting her body on the line like that, I just thought it was worthy of a film. So that's how it started. And right around, I think, November 2019, she had a meeting with Reverend Dr. Robert Waterman of Antioch Baptist Church about could they do something together to stop the racism and anti-Semitism in their neighborhoods, which are neighboring. I mean, they're, Park Slope and Bed-Stuy right next to each other. As Reverend Waterman says in the film, they're next to each other, but completely different worlds. And they really didn't, they were aware that their congregations, and Reverend Waterman's congregation is one of the oldest Black Baptist churches in New York. It's over 100 years old. It's called Antioch Baptist Church. Very theatrical, very, very lively. The many different, you'll see Representative Hakeem Jeffries in the film, very much tied in with Reverend Waterman, and then Senator Schumer's over at the temple with Congregation Beth Elohim and Park Slope. So, I mean, these are two spiritual leaders who are leading our leaders, and they put their heads together, and we happen to be there because we were making that film about Rachel. And so that became the thrust, because I grew up with Rachel in the segregated South. Obviously, I'm a couple of years younger than Rach, and we were both totally taken with the segregation that was still happening when we were growing up in the 70s. And she refers in the film to the McDuffie riots and the fires that happened. And, that really put a mark on both of us. And it was just surprising to me to hear that all these years later, even though she's a rabbi, and that's obviously got to be her number one concern, that actually solving racism is her dream. It's always been her dream. And to try to figure that out by partnering with a Black Baptist church was the way that she felt like she could maybe do it. It was such a bold idea. It was so unprecedented. And it ended up taking over the narrative. And that's what happens a lot in documentaries. So luckily, the church really let us in, and we kept showing up, and things got really tense, and things kind of fell apart here and there a few times. And we just tried to be as deeply embedded as possible and getting both perspectives equally and evenly. And it was definitely one of my more challenging films, Mike, in terms of coming out with something that really feels truthful, authentic, and representative of both groups and their perspectives. But what happened was incredible, and it's a model, I think. I think we've emerged with a model that churches and temples and mosques and groups of all kinds can use, not just religious groups, but I think it's really a model of partnership and dialogue across all difference. So that's why I'm really excited about bringing it out right now, because I think our world is sort of splintering and has been for a long time. So hopefully the film will serve as a bit of an antidote to that in its own little way.
I could not agree with you more. I just interviewed the director of a documentary called Leap of Faith. And this is one of the reasons. I'm not a particularly religious man, but I can tell you that I appreciate what religion brings to a society when it is directed in this kind of way. It really has a tremendous impact. And the Leap of Faith is about these ministers coming together to find common ground. And this is as well. Now, this is an example of living, immersing yourself in the lives of these two different congregations. And that's the difference. They were talking amongst themselves. This is on the ground, real life. This is what really, when you show up for a celebration of the crucifixion of Christ, this is what it means, and what it means to both sides is completely different. And again, the power here, it goes without saying.
Yeah, and I'm not a religious person either, I should say. As is mentioned in Last Flight Home, which is the story of my father and his final days in our family, where you first get to meet Rachel. If you've seen that film, she's very different in that film. She's very much my father's oldest daughter, and working on the eulogy and working on guiding our family through a really, really difficult and scary passage of losing dad. But in this, she's just, no matter where she is, she's so authentic. She lacks any irony. She is like 100% who she is. She's going to be the first one to admit she's wrong, but she's also going to do some things that are controversial and say some things that are controversial. And I really love that about her. And I feel like everyone follows that lead, and everybody does it. And I feel like the film really benefits from how courageous everyone in it is, because they've all seen it, and they're all really looking forward to the premiere at the Village East on November 14th. They're all going to be there. The choir's going to sing afterwards, which is Project Harmony, Jews and Blacks Together, that has been there helping to kind of mend all the wounds that happened. But yeah, I didn't, when I was filming the scene you refer to at Easter Sunday, I thought how wonderful, how theatrical, how beautiful, like for a filmmaker, it was gold, right? I was like, this is amazing. I didn't have the feed of my sister's audio at the time. I didn't see that until afterwards. And I didn't realize how upset she was until afterwards. And that's because, as I referred to in Last Flight Home, my father was the kind of, Jewish man who would sneak out the back of a synagogue. He did have his bar and bat mitzvah, but he was never a religious man. And we were those Jewish people that showed up on the high holy days, so I'm not as offended as Rachel was, or as scared for my congregants, obviously, because they're not my congregants. And so, yeah, immediately debriefing with Rachel was crucial, which is where that voiceover comes from when she's leaving the church. And then getting Reverend's perspective on it, who felt like he had not blamed the Jews, so it was just this, I don't want to give the whole film away, but it was this unbelievable scene of verite that almost reminds me of like Nashville or something. It's like, it feels like one of those scenes where people are mic'd and they don't know they're mic'd. And,
Yeah.
it's the kind of documentary gold that you dream of having. That is kind of the centerpiece of our centerpiece film, I think.
Yeah,
But they come back from it, they come back from it because they promise not to walk away. And
exactly. That's exactly right. This is when you are in uncharted territory, mentally, physically, emotionally, philosophically, you're going to run into these things that you couldn't have seen coming around the corner. And this is, I mean, to the point of and I don't want to give too much more away than what you said, but this is the origin story for anti-Semitism. This was an embodiment of the thing that has caused the Jewish people thousands of years of this brutality.
Being killed. Yeah.
Brutality. And so, but just to what you just said, the fact that they pledged at all costs, or they're going to see this through. You mentioned Reverend Dr. Robert Waterman, who is just terrific, as well as so many others. It's not just the two of them. Everyone that is involved in this is to understand that this is a process and nothing is perfect in a process like this. And you just have to live through it.
Yeah, I mean, a core part of Christianity too is spreading the love of Jesus and spreading the word of Jesus, and so as Wally Crandall, who's a wonderful character in the film, says, and then you'll get to know us and you'll get to know Jesus. And my sister's like even the Jews for Jesus conversation is just so funny. That's where like really I feel like humor is so important to all of it. And there's some laugh out loud moments in this film. Yeah, everybody has to realize like, oh, we're not going to change you. We're going to learn how to like live with you. I almost feel like in the film, they go up Jesus Mountain, they go down Jesus Mountain. And then when they go around Jesus Mountain, then they can get to the real issues that they both share. And they can start standing shoulder to shoulder as they aimed to do in the beginning. And by then, they're like becoming like family because they're seeing each other more than they might see their families. I mean, they're meeting on a monthly basis. They start out by worshiping together, which maybe wasn't the best way to start out, but it is beautiful in its messiness, isn't it?
That is life. Life is messy. This is everything about the film reflects an honesty. Everything about it are people doing the best they can in, like I said, uncharted territory. People don't do this very often. And the fact is,
I don't think it like almost ever happens, which is why it became the focus. Cause I was like, this is really extraordinary. If this is really what they're going to try to do. And the anti-Semitism that they didn't know they had, and the racism and the kind of white privilege that my sister even admits to in the film, all kind of comes out in the wash. And it's just really, yeah, it's an honor and a privilege every time as a filmmaker that I get to be invited in and allowed to stay and allowed to kind of work through stories, people's personal and very heartfelt stories like this, and get to present it to an audience. Like it's just something I just am addicted to. I love doing it. And so I'm really, really happy about it. And I feel like it's going to have really long legs in terms of just where it's going to play, because I think it should play every college and every church and every temple. It'll change the conversation. It'll change people's lives. All those young kids that are growing up as part of this program are never going to be thinking the same way about white and black or Jewish and Christian again.
At the end of the day, we're all going to end up in the same place, whether or not it's some heavenly place or we're going to end up in a pile of dirt. One way or the other, we're all going to get there. So however that happens and whatever gives us comfort is, for me, this is why religion is an important aspect of human civilization. We don't understand things and we need something to help us try to explain the unexplainable.
Well, that's what I think. I think that we're so terrified because we hear these stories once in a while of being able to see, getting a message from somebody once they're gone. But our loved ones die. Everyone we love will die, and we ourselves will die. And that's something I went through a lot with Last Flight Home, is just talking through mortality. In fact, I'm like off to the University of Rochester tomorrow medical school, who are screening Last Flight Home, and I'm part of a panel there. Like Last Flight Home never stops playing. anywhere. So I'm very much involved in the conversation of mortality. And I do think that our fear of mortality is the main source of religion. The idea that we can have a story that we can believe in of what might happen and that it's going to be okay on some level, that our loved ones are somewhere safe and good, and maybe they're even better off. That feeling rather than nothingness is really important to a lot of people. And I think, but I grew up feeling like religion was often the source of war and divisiveness. And I was really against religion in general. And had a hard time when my sister decided to become a rabbi, because she had been raising all this money for all these nonprofits. And she's just, as you know, such a powerful, powerful person in her determination. She's just going to do whatever she's going to do. And so I was like, well, why are you only going to pay attention to this 1% of the population who are Jewish now instead of like everybody? But look what she's done with her rabbinate. She's actually housing Syrian refugees. And I mean, they do so much at Congregation Beth Elohim. They're one of the most diverse and active and just charitable and just like involved politically, socio-politically involved groups I've ever touched and gotten to know. And here she is doing something that's this model, hopefully through this film, this example of how it can be, what religion actually can do. I'm really a fan of her being a rabbi at this point, because I think she's the face of Judaism that the world needs to see right now at this time of rising anti-Semitism. She and her congregants, they're wonderful. The core group on both sides, and Blacks and Jews used to stand together shoulder to shoulder through the civil rights movement. And, there's a lot of shared history and there's a lot of generational trauma on both sides. And nobody's ever going to compare Jews can pass as white. And so there's no comparison to racism and anti-Blackness. And nobody's trying to make that comparison with this film. But the Holocaust was a very serious eradication of like 1/3 of our population. And that happened very fast. And so seeing the groups go to the African American History Museum and then to the Holocaust Museum back to back and absorb that information, I think was a really crucial step, realizing what they have in common and realizing that maybe they would be more powerful if they stood together. And it's true. And they become more powerful. So
Ondi Timoner, director of All God's Children, when and how can people see this film?
It's opening at IFC Center on the big screen, September 26th. There's going to be incredible Q&As around it. And I hope people will come out and support All God's Children. And then from there, it's actually doing a 20-city minimum theatrical event tour, screening tour, where every city is going to have a temple and a church in partnership where the rabbi and the pastor will engage in a post-screening discussion with a discussion guide that we have written in collaboration with the Congregation Beth Elohim and Antioch Baptist Church and with the core group and with Rabbi and Rev. Hopefully the model will continue and there'll be partnerships across the country, because white nationalists would love nothing more than for Blacks and Jews to be separated, at least, if not in conflict. And the reality is there's a lot of shared love and a possibility for a lot of, we'll see. I don't want to give away the film, but there's great things that happen because they can stand together now. The partnership continues now, and they're doing these amazing internships, and they're taking on different rights, different causes together that are important to each different group.
Ondi Timoner, it's always a pleasure to have you on. You're welcome anytime. And if you want to use this as a platform to interview people, I'd be more than happy to provide that. So thank you.
That's a cool offer. Thank you.
Anytime. You tell me what. It's always a pleasure, not only to talk to you about your films, but just to talk to you at all. So thank you, Ondi. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. And right back at you.
You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.